It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Corey Leland. Corey Leland has been studying and developing healing consciousness for over 25 years, this lifetime. No wife, no kids, no much of a career. Until now, just many thousands of hours of dedication of spiritual path. Together, we'll explore what it means to save the world from the inside. Tonight, he will be giving each one of us in attendance the opportunity to be focused on the entire group energy. Let me restate that. He will give us, everyone in attendance, the opportunity to be the focus of the entire group energy, and teaching you how to develop the healing consciousness to be a spiritual leader. You can be an instrument through which healing can take place. Everyone give Corey a big hand.
Good evening, everybody. Hello.
You want to turn it on?
I gotta switch this on. I don't want a cordless mic, but that one's gonna be good. Now, it's almost impossible to decide what you're gonna say in a talk like this. It's just not really possible. And even during the night, I would think about, gosh, what am I gonna say? And I'd write down some notes, and I bought some 3x5 cards, but it's almost still impossible to really sort of plan. But because of what I sent to Frank, I did want to give anybody here, so please think about it if you're feeling brave. If there's anything at all that you're feeling troubled about, I've recently started calling myself an emotional superhero. Most superheroes save people from physical danger, like Superman and Batman. So I think that what's needed is emotional superhero. So if anyone wants to be the focus of the entire group energy, because we have so many dedicated souls here tonight, we could practice, as is the Spiritual Unity Movement slogan, saving the world from the inside on behalf of the individual. If it's one person's issue, it's pretty much everybody's, right? We all have the same brain, essentially. So I think it's interesting, it occurred to me recently that the law of attraction, I just wanted to say, is, gosh, and I'm glad that Leo, part of the Leo energy, is thinking outside the box, because as unusual as I'm dressed, the message that I share is not usual. Most spiritual teachers these days, they have a law of attraction type message, right? What can I think? What thoughts can I think? How can I manifest something? What can I attract and add to myself? And that's considered pretty much spirituality in the modern times. But it occurred to me that that really is not spirituality. And how much more appropriate is it that we're in a building called the Onion? Because the onion is a Hindu analogy for the spiritual path. There's many layers of an onion, and as we study, we meditate, we practice, the outer layers fall away, in theory, until we can get to the inner core, where there are no problems, nothing that needs to be healed. And I think that the spiritual message is not so much about attracting, because who wants to attract? The false sense, the persona, that's completely conditioned by society, its past, its future, its wanting, its fearing, it's the hero of the dream, and it's unreal. So trying to attract more to enhance my false sense, that's not spiritual, that's just materialism in the name of spirituality. So spirituality is more of a law of subtraction. And I wanted to focus on some of the things that block us from the awareness of our divine center. And the onion is a good analogy for that. Towards the end of 2014, I had a couple spiritual experiences, and I've been meditating at the top of each hour. When I'm at home, top of each hour for 5 minutes since April of 1992. And for the longest time, if you knew me in 92 on, I'm sure some of you heard me throughout the years, down through the centuries, I always thought that if I could go on Oprah Winfrey or I could go on Larry King Live and invite all of humanity to unite simultaneously, that synchronized top of the hour time, it could be a new way to vote. Everybody has a clock, and accepting an Oscar or a Grammy on behalf of someone who's not at the ceremony, you're accepting and you're receiving as easy as you're relaxing in the sunshine to get warm after you've been in the ocean. You're accepting whatever you seem to be lacking or wanting for yourself at that top of the hour time. So it's like a full moon meditation, saving the world from the inside type thing every hour, like a New Year's resolution every hour. And you break the chains of the past, the things that you're worried about and fearful about. So I had a couple of experiences towards the end of 2014, middle of the night both times, sitting up in bed, and I described them after that as glimpses of freedom. And freedom, as I now understand it, is freedom from the physical sense. It's freedom from the world, it's freedom from the persona, and it's freedom from the sense that you're confined inside a body. And I wanted to share some of the things I've been practicing down through the centuries and in recent years that I think led me to those freeing experiences. And I'll be honest with you, if I could get back to that place and have that feeling of total freedom, I wouldn't come back. I would stay there. So it wasn't as profound as like you see a near-death, near-life experience from somebody who's flatlined, or they're, in a operating table, or they're in a car crash or some horrible, seemingly horrible situation. But what do they always come back to say? I wasn't there. I was free. I'm not afraid of death anymore. So that part of us that's free and has no problems that those people come back to describe that they experienced, that's always who you really are. You're never going to really die. We are always, like the Palmolive commercial from the 70s, we are soaking in God all the time. But we're unaware that we're soaking in it. So part of what we need to do to become more aware that who we really are is deathless, diseaseless, unthreatenable, not even nuclear bombs can harm who we really are. Part of what we can do to save, quote unquote, save the world from the inside, as is the slogan that Burl's wearing on the shirt, is to practice spiritual healing. There's principles of spiritual healing, which you can apply to an individual, but you can also treat this entire temporal kingdom, temporal meaning of time, temporary, temporal. So if you treat the entire human scene like a cancer, like you would treat a disease, that's really our best option. And some of the things to realize about spiritual healing is to know, first of all, what the nature of God is, the nature of reality. Omnipresence, it's everywhere, we're soaking in it. You can't get out of it, even by dying. It's around you like water on a fish that's thirsty and doesn't know. It's omniscience, so it's the all-knowingness. You don't have to beg or plead, oh God, tell God your problems. You just relax and honor God as omniscience. That's why Jesus says, take no thought for your life, because it already knows. You don't have to beg. So you honor the nature of God with your silence. You honor omniscience. You know how to digest my food without me begging you, please digest my lunch. And it's omnipotent. It's the only power, the one power. And Stefan's group, Oneness Media, so one. Omni means all, means one. And when you have allness, there's not allness and something else. You only have the temptation in the situation of a symptom or a problem or a human scene that's on the verge of complete annihilation any moment. You only have the temptation to believe that there's something besides the allness of God's ultimate reality. So the world is a hypnotic trance. We're lost in a dream. And the goal of human living is to awaken out of the dream. It's not to be a good person, like most religious people will tell you, that the object of life is to be good. It's not the object to be good. It might be a side benefit of getting your conscious union with God. Then you can't help but be a good person. But if you try to be good first, even the best people can be bad in certain circumstances, and Bad people can turn very good in a certain circumstance. So badness and goodness is not the goal. Neither is the goal, as I was saying a little while ago, attracting more money, attracting new cars. Thoughts are not power. And that is some outside-the-box thinking in 2015 spirituality. You do not create your reality, and thoughts are not power. Where have you ever heard that before? I don't think you probably have. But the fact of the matter is, take no thought for your life is my favorite one little quote from the entire Bible. Take no thought for your life. So that certainly goes against the law of attraction. The thing about religions are, maybe you don't quite realize this, is that they're tools and instruments of control. And back in the ancient times, the ruling class, before we had cameras, surveillance cameras on every street corner, before every text, email, and phone call was monitored and recorded, they invented a god that was watching your every movement and thought with the eye to punish you. Now that we have almost a total surveillance grid, whew, do I feel safe now? They're kind of phasing that sort of God out, and slowly people started to leave the churches, and because they were sort of getting a little wise, they're getting hip to this whole thing. What do you mean God's going to burn me eternally because I committed some small infraction or something? So they created this thing, and this is just purely speculation, and yes, you may say I am a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not the only one. And I'm a conspiracy analyst, let's say. So I think that the powers that be, as I've said recently, Oprah was wrong. Thoughts are not power. Thoughts keep us bound like chains to materiality, because thinking is always about the future or the past. And as we know, to come upon reality, you have to enter that stillness and the now. And what we call now is not now. We say, it's now. No, that's not now. What we call now is not now. It's a snapshot of the dream. Now is the omnipresent, invisible reality, and we're dreaming that we're a separate, doomed, vulnerable, fragile, frail, what I call flesh puppet. And this is flesh puppet theater. So I love A Course in Miracles. I found it to be infinitely challenging and helpful. And it says that at no single instant does your body, and I'm going to add to that, this world, exists at all. Only its past and future make it seem real. So it's just the thoughts of past and future that make it seem real. So like peeling the layers of the onion, we need to be able to observe our thinking and outgrow and escape. One of the quotes that I've like to say that I came up with is that this world is not so much to be enjoyed and improved as it is to be outgrown and escaped. And so we use I'd like to use whatever's going on for you as a challenge, as incentive to let go. In fact, it occurred to me that suicide, when somebody's suicidal, if they're still open-minded, that can be the most powerful opportunity for healing spiritually, because until you're really willing to let go, as the Buddha says, with both hands of this world and totally forget everything, you're not really on a spiritual path. I mean, it's not about how much can I attract to my humanness and improve my human life. And so we use our challenges as incentive. Is anybody willing to... See, I envisioned there'd be two chairs and someone would, there was one teacher that I saw and they said, we want you to start doing large talks to large groups of people. And he said, I only see one person at a time. And they said to him, good, okay, you talk to one person and we'll all listen. So I was wondering, is there anybody who might have a particular challenge or just because if it's your issue, it's everybody's issue. We all need to we can approach it that way if you like, if anybody wants to. Are you open-minded on that? Okay, great. Let's do that. What's your name? Sandy. Hi, Sandy. That's my mom's name. I can't forget that. Let's just put a couple chairs facing each other, Sandy. And so in just a few, hi, I'm Corey. Nice to meet you. And I'm going to get one more chair right here. Take this one right here. Okay. Okay, Sandy. So what's going on? What's going on for you right now? And just I wanted to sort of face Sandy, but I don't want to like not see everybody out. Most people over there also. Thank you, bro. I got it. Sandy, you could just put in like one word, 2 words, or a line or two, like you're a Twitter, and you know, without going on and on and on. Well, let's try to pare it down to the distilled essence, because what's going on for you, and how can we as a group? You have all these beautiful, dedicated souls here tonight. How can we as a group? I just want to give some sense of how to be a spiritual healer. I mean, we have the great example of Jesus, but we haven't really made huge strides in the direction of spiritual healing like we probably could. And we have Obamacare, but we don't. Not quite the same thing, is it? Okay, so what's going on for you, Sandy?
Well, I've kind of hit the bottom. Full of fear, lost touch with God. Me and my daughters all have serious illnesses, and it's all kind of taken over my life. And I'm about to be a first-time grandma, and you know, I'm living in fear of losing my house and all this stuff, and I just want to learn to step outside of it all and bring the faith back and be the best grandma I can be.
Beautiful, and I'm sure that most of us can relate to a lot of that. And whether or not we are presently facing any health challenges at one time or another, it just comes with the territory, doesn't it? But the fact is, so in terms of like, when you come upon someone who is in some sort of degree of believing the world is real, basically our function as healers is to forgive. God's love forgives us all the time. It shines like the sun. It forgives us the belief that we're just a body and that we're temporary and that we're separate. And A Course in Miracles says it's impossible that I could have a problem, that I could become aware of a problem that has not been solved already. So the truth about it is the world is not actually happening. I call it not actually happening-ism. It's supposed to be a little bit funny. But you've heard of evolution, you've heard of creationism. Ladies and gentlemen, not actually happening-ism. Now, to the degree that you can say brother or sister, and you don't usually say it out loud, somebody's going on about what's happening, their drama, right? Their past, their future. And you, as a spiritual healer, are able to witness silent, sister, brother, I forgive you. Meaning that you are reflecting that same love of God that forgives our belief that we're just a flesh puppet, that we're a body in a world with problems. And to the degree that you can see, there are no people here. There's no people. There's no world. There's only God here. The only truth there is to know about anyone is the truth about God. There's never any truth about a person, because truth is changeless. It doesn't turn from good to bad. So to be anchored in the awareness of who you really are, and that comes with right identification with the I am, the capital I, your life force, the capital I, has no problems, it never will. The lowercase I that we see in the mirror with the past and the future and the drama, that's what we need to shine away, as a spiritual healer. And it's a lot easier sometimes to do it for other people than it is for ourselves. But if we can get even one holy instant in the midst of our drama, that in that moment you've made the space to receive the grace. And that one instant, it can shine on your mind, and either it will have an effect on the outer world, or you're just not going to mind as much anymore. You know what I mean? So, forgiveness is synonymous with healing, essentially. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought someone did to you has not occurred, and it's not actually happening. And any questions about that so far?
I'm not sure about what you just said.
Okay. Well, God's love forgives our belief that we're separate. The only problem we ever really have, no matter what it seems to be, is that we believe that we're an isolated, separate individual with a past and a future and a fleshly, temporary, vulnerable body. But the truth is, your spirit, I, the capital I. So what we see in the mirror, that's our tempter. Mortal sense, the feeling of being a body, is our temptation. That's our tempter. So the important thing to remember, and we'll practice this in our meditation, is that there's help available, and it's called correction. Correction. So it's just as easy as relaxing in the sunshine to get warm, but to call on the help. And in Hinduism, have you heard of Shiva, the god Shiva? He's the destroyer, right? The many arms, the cosmic dancer, the god of Tantra. Shiva destroys. What do you think Shiva destroys?
I don't know.
Shiva destroys illusions, and that's the only thing we need to be healed from, is this belief, this conditioning, that I'm just a body in a world with problems. So start, every time you catch yourself worried about your body, worried about the future, preoccupied with the past, you call upon that strength and you allow it to destroy. In fact, a devotee of Shiva would say, Shiva, Shiva. It's like an invitation. And you have the kind of a god, if you're a Hindu, worship Shiva, who's there to dissolve your upsets. It's a little bit different than having a kind of god you're afraid is about to punish you. You know what I mean? Well, that's there's the folklore is that when the world was created, there was some poison left over, some toxins, and Shiva said the rest of the gods didn't know what to do with it, but Shiva said, "Give it to me," and he drank the poison and he dissolved it in himself. So we have the kind of a god. You don't have to be a devotee of Shiva. But truth be told, God is there, the love is there to forgive you of your upset, whatever it seems to be. And so if we can focus our attention on Sandy and just be willing to see, even if you're just with one person or you're by yourself in your home, or if you're in a stadium at a concert or sporting event, the vibe, if you could hold it, is that there are no people here, only God is here. And let's face it, that really goes a long way in the direction of forgiveness. And true forgiveness is healing. It's like saying, sister, right where Sandy appears to be, everybody, let's practice this. Right there where Sandy appears to be, because God is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. What's really right there is only perfection. Now, to the degree that we could become aware of that, you would heal someone. Judge not after appearances. You don't say, oh gosh, look at you visit somebody in a hospital. Do you want somebody who's going to come in and say, you're really screwed up, look what's happening to you, oh my God, ooh, you know, or do you want somebody who can see through, not judge by the appearance? See, only God is here, and who you really are has no problems. So if you can do that, and to the degree that you can do that, you will bring some peace to those you encounter without even saying anything out loud. You don't have to say it out loud. Whatever drama somebody's going on about. So is it helpful at all to recognize that at no single instant is the world actually happening at all? And only your thoughts make it seem like it's happening? Does that help at all?
No.
Okay, that's fair enough. It's kind of like if I gave you a guitar lesson and you wouldn't expect to go do a concert the next day or the next week. It would take a lot of practicing. And unfortunately, we're so conditioned to believe that we're a body. And everything that we think, the human thought system that comes with the body, convinces us that we're temporary and vulnerable. So the very feeling of being a person is the root of the weed that we need to dig out. Just the feeling of being a body. I call it, in the 12-step program, they call it the higher power. I call it the closer power. Closer than even the feeling of your body. Closer than anything my brain is going to try to tell me.
How do you step outside your body when it always hurts?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. We have to use the pain as incentive to practice. And there's a lesson from A Course in Miracles, which is something I've listened to many thousands of hours, all through the nighttime. And I recommend as a spiritual student that you don't waste those nighttime hours because you're just laying there. So I have a little CD player right by my bed. And before CDs, I got good at flipping the cassette around and hitting play half asleep. But there's a lesson that says, whatever suffers is not part of me. So whatever suffers, this pain is not part of who I really am. You have to actually begin to, much of what the practice is to disassociate with the physical and identify rightly with the non-structural perfection. In Christian Science, they call perfect spiritual body. And there is no spot where God is not in the Christian Science Sunday school. It's a little rhyme they have. So the fact of the matter is that at the same time you're recognizing the nature of God as the only presence, the only power, and the only substance, the only law, the only reality, in that same moment you have to realize that the nature of pain is just a temptation to believe that omni or allness is not the reality. So it's a temptation to believe that God is not real and that the world is. So both pleasure and pain seek to prove the body is real. And we constantly use the body and the world and time as a defense against the truth, as a defense against God. The way that a rebellious 14-year-old would put, Marilyn Manson posters all over his room and crank up the loud music just to carve out his own territory so Dad can't come in and compete. Because I can't compete with Dad, his money, his success, his career. But if I have my own little space, Dad can't compete. So we use the body, we use disease and trouble to try to keep God out. And it's very insidious. But you just take it one thought at a time. But if I'm in pain and I practice whatever suffers is not part of me, and I call on that healing corrective power, the correction like the Shiva, so this pain is not part of who I really am. And let's practice that a little bit together for a second. Burl, how are we doing on time, and what time do we do the meditation session? Where are we at? Because I could talk for weeks on end, and I know people are going to just sleep and eat and everything. Okay, perfection. We've got plenty of time. Oh, there'll be music also? So because it's so important to outgrow the sense of being a body and escape time, the trap of time, we are all, as humans, on the Titanic. It's the voyage of the Titanic, in a way, isn't it? You know the iceberg is coming. Your human situation is not going to last forever. Are you gonna, if somebody says, we're gonna hit an iceberg in about 20 minutes, oh, let's go play shuffleboard. Or no, let's rearrange the chairs. Oh, I think I'll paint my cabin. The spiritual oneness with the capital I am, is the indestructible, deathless, diseaseless lifeboat. So the more you practice recognizing who you really are, has no birthday or death day, that you can use your pain as incentive. So, and what we can do for Sandy, even when we're thinking, even if she comes to mind, or you think of anybody that you know who's not feeling well, and you recognize that right where they are, you're essentially forgiving them the way God's love forgives. That who you really are is not separate from the everything. You know, you're not an isolated, doomed flesh puppet. Who you really are, like the people that have those near-death experiences, is ageless, eternal, and unthreatenable. But anytime you feel the pain, you just have to get to that closer power, closer than the pain. You got to know there's a divine center, and in that closer place, there are no problems, and there never will be. Whatever suffers is not part of me. And then you call upon that healing presence, and you shine it away. So are you in pain right now? Anybody else in pain or feeling any symptoms at all? It's as easy as, another thing I want to mention, Sandy, when I think I'm isolated and I'm the only one that's hurting, and I'm the only one that's worried about paying the bills, and I'm the only one that has kids on the way, it's a lot more conducive to receiving help if you do that receiving on behalf of everybody. Like accepting an Oscar or a Grammy on behalf of someone who's not at the ceremony. So accepting healing, on behalf of everyone everywhere who's in pain, on behalf of everyone who's worried about money or their kids, is Sandy. And I suggest that every time it's the top of the hour, here's my prescription for you, you'll know that I'm doing it. If I'm at home, I'm doing it. I don't pull off the freeway or sit down in the middle of Trader Joe's, although it might be interesting and fun if we did. But at the top of each hour, the consistency adds up. And to know that you're not alone is a big part of it. and then to ask for and receive the help that's always available, okay? So the help is there to make the glad exchange of pain for peace, of fear for love, of separation for oneness or unity. But we need to make that glad exchange. You have to call on the help and then relax and receive and accept what you've asked for. Okay, and we're going to practice that in our meditation. So we use our pains, our upsets as incentive to call on the strength, receive it, and accept it on behalf of everyone everywhere. And as long as those symptoms persist, you got to go, this is not part of who I really am. Pain is no part of me. And you call on the strength, say, I don't want this anymore, take this from me. And it's just like you're holding it up for the Christ Spirit, or however you want to say it, to shine this away. I don't want it. The sense of weakness and vulnerability is always associated with the belief that we're bodies. Strength comes from our conscious awareness of spirit. So it's really important to call upon the strength and accept it and receive it and recognize whatever suffers is not part of who I really am. At no single instant does my body even exist at all. Only its past, its future make it seem real. So practice just taking it one thought at a time. When we're worried, we're projecting a vast future. It's like this vast future that is imagined. It's not actually happening right now. And the past is also similarly not here. I'll say this about kids and pets even. I don't have children, but I have a couple cats. And there's the temptation to worry, if something happens to me, what's going to happen to my cats, you know? And having children, as you're experiencing, Sandy, is the greatest temptation. In fact, when Buddha had just received his illumination, or he was just about to, he was a very serious student, somebody came and said, you just had a baby boy. And the quote is, there's an obstacle. Meaning, having children is the greatest obstacle to real spirituality, because you feel like, I got to stick around. If something happens to me, what's going to happen to my kids, right? Isn't that a horrible, terrible burden that most people feel? So the important thing to recognize in not actually happening-ism is that they're not really there. Neither are you. They're characters in your dream. And only God is really here. And that they were God's children, even if you still believe they're actually there, before they were yours. So if you can say at any place you are, nothing here belongs to me. In fact, part of waking up out of the dream of mortality is not wanting to have anything for my own. Remember the imagine no possessions? Did you ever think about what that means? Imagine no possessions. So in your holy instant, and if you sit down at the top of each hour, which it is now, you want to get even just one instant in those 5 minutes where you completely, as best you can, forget your body. And you completely want nothing, there's nothing you would seek for as a goal, because the purpose of the body is to strive. It's always striving, because inherently the physical sense is unfulfilled. It's based on the belief that it's a separate, temporary, vulnerable, fragile, frail entity, right? So we need to come to one instant where we're willing to have nothing as a goal, nothing we would seek for, and nothing that we want to keep as our own, not even our children. So that's the story of Abraham, where God, in theory, said, sacrifice your infant. And that's largely misunderstood, that story, but he was willing to do it. And then God says, cool, you don't have to. So we need to be willing to throw out the baby and the bathwater in that one instant, because they're not really there. They're characters in your dream. They're dream characters. Our goal is to wake up out of the dream. Is any of this helping at all? Okay, because words will only help so much, and that's why we need to go in and let the Spirit do the work, because words don't do the healing. Thoughts are not power. But we use thoughts like a ladder to get to the rooftop. Once you get to the top of the roof, you don't need the words anymore for a while, right? And then in the silence, you receive what you've asked for, the help that you've requested. Okay? Do you want to go back and sit in your seat? Or thank you. Thank you. And And I will be, anytime somebody comes to mind that you know, a family member or a friend who's in some sort of crisis, that is the time to just know the truth about them. Know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And the truth is never the truth about a person. We always want to meditate on cause. We always want to meditate on the source of healing. The effects will take care of themselves if you meditate on cause. So the source of all health, the source of life eternal, the source of abundance, of healing, is closer than close, what I call the closer power. It's closer than the feeling of my body, closer than anything my brain is going to think. Is there anybody else who has a particular, you don't have to get up and sit down and do all that, but another particular issue besides?
A number of us, I was just talking with one of the people back here and also Dina before Christmas, and a number of us there's a consciousness of people having accidents. And even the orthopedist office had 100 and some people in one day in the office, and this was during the holidays. So there's some type of consciousness or illusion or whatever that's bringing us to, I don't know, it's getting our attention some way. And I just wanted to throw that out here because there's a lot of us that are being thrown into this awareness for some odd reason and having this experience. So, because you're saying, again, I think it's kind of aligned with what this healing, if it's healing for one, it's healing for all. So, maybe we can just think about, just put that out for all of us that are going through that.
Perfection. And then I think it's time for the musician to sing a song. I want to address that real quickly. It's very important that we develop a consciousness of unthreatenability. So every time you meditate, you want to regard yourself as unthreatenable, non-structural perfection. So the appearance is never true, even if you're laying in a hospital bed and you seem to have had an accident. And probably that's going to be a good indication that the other things you were doing aren't as important as going within and starting to really focus on finding the lifeboat instead of, rearranging the deck chairs. So if you have an accident, that's a good opportunity to say, you know what, it's time to focus on my spiritual self, develop what's really going to go with me when I die is the conscious union that I develop with unthreatability. Course in Miracles at the very beginning, it's a very weighty big book, and it's what it says, it pares it down to one statement. It says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. I pared that down for myself to nothing threatening exists. So every time I'm tempted to worry about what's going to happen to me, I need to practice go, wait a minute, no. I, the real you, the deep self, the spirit, I am unthreatenable. No one and nothing of this world could harm me in any way. Not germs, not bombs, not vaccines, not measles, not nuclear radiation, nothing. And every time you practice identifying with non-structural, indestructible perfection in the face of every temptation to worry, it's like doing spiritual aerobics. And you strengthen your awareness, your conscious union with your divine self. And then the fears start to fade away. And in that same time, you call on the strength to take these fears from me. If I'm concerned, it's because I'm identified with my body. So to develop the consciousness of unthreatenability is a huge, huge part of it. Dissolving what outgrow and escape. When outgrow the belief that you're a body and escape from time and earth. It's not so much about saving the world in the way that we think of it. It's more like being saved from illusion and dissolving the human scene. We're not going to improve the earth. I don't believe that the world can be saved the way that we think it can. Too much pollution. We're on the verge of so many horrible crises. The goal is not to have a better world. It's to outgrow it and escape as quickly as possible. And that doesn't mean you're not going to still be here. You probably will. I kid you not. I mean, I'm glad that your laughter is the best medicine, but it's like get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as possible. That's the goal of spirituality, as I understand it. So let's sing a song. And rejoice that we don't have to be forever. But if you pass on, I'll say this much, if you die, quote unquote die, still believing this world has anything to offer you that you really want, you'll likely make the mistake of reincarnating again.